This week on The Dead Life, I'm sitting down again with Mark Ireland. Mark had to endure not only losing his father, but also unexpectedly losing his son, Brandon. Mark Ireland has written a book about mediums, spirit visitations, and afterlife communication titled The Persistence of the Soul. This is a fantastic book for people searching for answers spiritually and also scientifically. If you want to leave me a message that might be shared on a future episode of The Dead Life, leave it at 802-DEAD-811. You can follow me on Instagram at Medium Allison, on my Facebook fan page, and you can binge on my YouTube videos to watch readings, including episodes of The Dead Life. If you have abilities of your own and are looking to expand them and connect with other gifted people, go to deaduniversity.com. Well, Mark, welcome back to The Dead Life. I told you I was going to have you back soon.
Well, this is soon. I was surprised it was this quick, but I'm happy about it.
The last time that I talked to you, there was so much we didn't get to talk about. So that's why I wanted to have you back, especially with it being the holidays. That's my busy season because there's so many people missing their loved ones during the holidays because they're remembering the past memories made or childhood memories or the children that they miss. So I thought the timing of this was good. And I noticed that I counsel a lot of parents who suffer the loss of a child, and they barely seem to be breathing. They're just existing, white-knuckling it through life. What advice do you have for those parents?
Well, I guess first off, be patient with yourself and allow yourself to express the grief, and cry. We talked a little bit earlier about the organization that I co-founded, Helping Parents Heal, and we can dive into more about that later. But there's certain things that I've observed with the people who have come into the program and then maybe come in a very despondent, depressed way and left much more uplifted, hopeful, and living a full life. And so observing those, there are certain things that I've narrowed down to what I call the 5 pillars of healing that I'm not saying these are the only things, and obviously therapy would be this wouldn't be in lieu of therapy. This is in addition, but these are 5 things I've observed that really help people kind of get over the hump and move forward.
Yeah, I just read a woman yesterday who lost her son to fentanyl overdose, which I've been bringing them through for about 10 years now. It'd be great if our government could get a grip on that one, but it seems like it's going to be a while. And she also,
it's an epidemic.
Yeah, it's stoppable too. So hopefully in a year things get better. So she also had lost her husband to a heroin overdose. So I was seeing like a karmic pattern in the family, and we went through that. But often when I'm reading clients, the mother wants to be with the child. And so there was a suicidal overtone to her that I had to talk to her about. One of the things that seems to help mothers especially and fathers is when I say every day you wake up is a good day, you're a day closer to seeing them again. They're not your past, they're your present and future. You're moving towards them. And it helps them to get up in the morning and get out of bed, recognizing that it's a good day, that they're a day closer, but also the optic of not thinking of them as your past, where you don't want to move away from the last day they were alive. You just want time to stop. But if you know that you're moving towards them, it helps you mentally to be able to visualize days being a good thing, bringing you closer to them. So I find that to be helpful for parents when I counsel them.
Yeah, you can have a continuing relationship. It's just different. And that's the part that people have to understand and accept, that you're not going to have them back in physical form again, but they still exist, and you can have a relationship, and there are methods, not just through mediums, but other ways that they can have a form of connection directly. One of the earliest ones I did that was successful was before going to bed at night, I asked for a visit with Brandon, and I did it in a prayerful way and asked to remember it. And that night, now this has only happened one time. Now he's been in dreams and things, but this time was extremely vivid, more vivid than waking reality. So I felt I was really at a meeting point between this world and the next. It was a three-walled white room, just glowing white. And where the fourth wall should have been was infinity. It looked like the
Wow.
universe. It was just a really crazy setting. And he was sitting on what would be like a counter, but it was just part of the room. And I was so excited. I said, Brandon, I can't believe you're here. I got to go get Stephen and your mom and Stu, your friend. And I said, I've missed you so much since you died. And then he replied to me with a strange puzzle answer. He says, I didn't die. My father died. So I had to really mull that over for a
Right.
while. And what I concluded about a week later when talking to his best buddy, it just kind of came to me in a flash. And I'm like, oh, well, he didn't die because he just moved on to the next
Right.
realm. But part of me
Yes.
died, the old me. And it was like a new me that took off from that day forward. And ironically, a woman just wrote to me, and I think she may have had a reading from you. I'll have to check. But she read that. I wrote that in my first book, Soul Shift, about that experience. And she had the same identical experience with the same room with three walls, white. It was exactly the same. And she said when she read that, she was just thrilled because it confirmed for her that it was real.
Right. That's amazing. And that leads me to the next question, which I think I already know the answer to, but I really wanted to see your response. And it sort of ties into what you were just talking about. Do you find parents who lose a child find extra comfort in surrounding themselves with other parents who understand, who have walked that path as well? Do you find that comforting for yourself in your process?
Well, definitely. I'm well down the process myself, but I'd mentioned the five pillars of
Right.
healing. That's actually the second pillar. It's meeting people who have experienced the same thing because you could relate to each other and talk at a much deeper level. And people who haven't gone through that can't
No.
really wrap their arms around. There's no way, unless you had it happen to you, that you would fully
Right.
understand how hard it is and what it's like. So that is definitely, and that's one of the benefits of that the organization obviously provides. And interestingly, at our last conference, and we're going to have another in 2024, we drew 900. We're going to have 1,000 at the next one, and that's the hotel capacity. But our organization, sadly, it's just like 90% women. And the sad part is that the dads oftentimes are too closed
Yeah.
off or too stoic or whatever to get into that. The beauty of the conference was, though, that a lot of the women brought their husbands or partners with them. So we had a lot of men there that were for the first time exposed to not only other parents that they had built new relationships with, but to see the speakers that we had that were covering information that included not just therapy type stuff, but the afterlife stuff. We had near-death experience people there. We had some mediums there. So that was really remarkable to see. But yeah, those relationships that could be cultivated from someone who's been through the same thing, that's a big, big deal.
It's what I tell all of my clients. They need to find a grief support group because only other parents will understand how they feel. You can't walk in somebody's shoes, unless you've been there, you really don't know. And that goes with anything traumatic that happens in life. We can't possibly understand unless we've been there. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I find that to be true too with men. And I think a lot of men suffer in silence. And I have this conversation with their wives at my events. I'll see them dragged to my events, by their wives, and they're sitting up front because their wives made them, and they seem so uncomfortable. And as soon as I go in and I start reading them and bringing their child through, and it clicks in their head that this is their child because I say something that lets them know that this is real, you just see the color return to their face. And I know you've had this experience with people you've helped as well, where they look different. Their energy shifts. They're different than when they walked in the door. You send them out in a better place than they were when they entered. And I've watched dads over the years, and it makes me really sad that they suffer in silence. I think sometimes men are only comfortable breaking down when they're alone. They go into their rooms to cry. They go into their rooms to hurt, or they bottle it up and it hurts them physically. which is not good. And it's not that mothers can't do that, but mothers seem to, women are raised to be, it's okay if you cry. It's okay to be emotional. And a lot of guys were raised to suck it up, and be tough.
Don't share your
Right.
feelings. Don't
So
cry.
do you have a men's group that can get together where they share that just with one another, where their wives aren't there, so they can be open about how they feel?
I'm glad you asked about that because actually we did start one a few years ago. It's a subgroup of Helping Parents Heal called Helping
Oh,
Fathers
I love
Heal.
that.
And initially we were having a really hard time getting people to
Hmm.
participate. We'd get like 5 people or whatever, but it gradually gained momentum and now it's very successful. And if, when people go to the Helping Parents Heal website, they can find the link to Helping
Oh, I
Fathers
love
Heal.
that.
And that group has meetings every
Okay.
week, once a week. And then it's all dads, just
Do
dads.
they sometimes, do they have support if they need to Zoom somebody to talk because they're, I don't know, feeling suicidal, or they're in a place where they don't know how to, like, they have a dream and they don't have anyone to share it with, but they saw their son or their daughter in the dream and they need to talk to someone that understands. Can they reach out to you for something like that?
Well, sure. Actually, the meetings with Helping Fathers Heal are conducted by
Oh,
Zoom
nice.
because we got guys all
Yeah.
over the country and actually all over the world that participate. And that's a big part of what happens here. They share and they're comfortable sharing those kinds of
Yes.
experiences within this. In fact, the greater group Helping Parents Heal, the reason we exist is because the other bereaved parents organizations that already were
Hmm.
around don't allow the open discussion of spiritual experiences
Mm.
or afterlife evidence. And that is a core part of what we
Yeah,
do.
that's
We
unfortunate.
allow that.
Yeah.
And it's a very healing thing. But that's why we're growing so rapidly, I think, too, because people are moving over from those other
Right.
groups.
I love it. They're
You
evolving.
know,
And, they have the 5 stages of grief that we all know about. And I wrote in my book, I came up with I had a 6th stage, which I think your organization provides to parents. And I think it's crucial. And it's what the other organizations lack: reconnection. My 6th stage of grieving is reconnection. And that's connecting with the person that you love that died and forming a new bond and building a stronger, dialogue between the two of you, and being able to accept that they're still part of your life. And so I have that 6th grief step in the healing process. And that's what you do. That's really what you're doing. And that's amazing. It's necessary.
yeah, and that ties into the 5 pillars of healing that I was
Hmm.
talking about. I'll just run through
Yeah,
them real quickly if it's
please.
appropriate timing. So the first one is support from family and friends, if you have
Hmm.
that. Not everyone has a healthy family
Right.
relationship. But if you do, that can be a big plus, especially if there's a lot of love and support there. Also, it's good for family members to know because oftentimes they'll try and skirt around the issue or not talk about the child.
Right.
But the parents really want to talk about the
Right.
child. They want to bring up happy memories and things and discuss those things. So it's important for people to realize that. The second pillar is exactly what we just talked about. It's meeting people who have been through the same thing so that you can form those relationships and have an exchange with someone who's been through the same thing and can relate. The third pillar, initially people probably can't do this, but in
Hmm.
time, I think it's a real plus, and that is to provide service. It could be any kind of service. It could be working in a soup kitchen.
Right.
It could be, working for a foundation for organ donation or cancer research, or even being an affiliate of our organization or something
Sure.
like that. But I found when you give, when you help, it comes back to you, and it's really
It
true.
is.
It
It
works.
does help you to heal, to do. And it's funny that you say that, because it's another way that something that I've been telling my clients for a while. And it's that if you keep yourself busy doing something for somebody else in need, or an animal even, but some life that is in need, it slowly, the pain starts slipping, and it's replaced by this feeling of purpose that helps you to move forward, and it makes it easier for you to connect with the deceased, because it changes your energy frequency, like it raises your vibration. Do you find that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I was on Coast to Coast AM about a month ago, and had they had callers coming in, and one woman was just
Mm,
sobbing and saying, "I don't get any signs from my son," and I could tell right away. Well, part of it is your emotional
right.
state. I had to be very delicate in how I
Sure.
responded to her, but I think people have to be. They're going to have a much better chance of having those connections if they're in a better emotional
Hmm.
state.
That's true.
And I know it's not. You have to give yourself a little time because it's not going to be day one.
Yeah. And it's also people who are more emotionally available tend to be able to connect or that don't carry guilt. Guilt can act as a block between you and the person trying to get through to you has to go through other people because your walls went up high and thick when they died. And so it's harder for them to come through to you, but it's not that they're not there for you. And it does matter the person. It's interesting that people will make a blanket statement like that. Well, if there's signs, why don't I get any? Well, maybe you do. Maybe you dismiss them because you explain them away in your head. And so it does no good. And after a while, they stop sending signs because you're not acknowledging their presence in your life. So it's a
Or you don't recognize them because
right.
it's not the burning bush.
Well, and people can be pretty, I mean, human beings, we're just so arrogant. We'll say, okay, well, if you're real, we're literally talking to the soul of the person we love. If you're real and you're here, you know, turn my car blue. Like it's like they don't want it to be true. They'll name something that's just insurmountable, like improbable that it's gonna happen, the odds of it happening. And it's like, do you not want to hear from them? Just listen, like close your eyes and listen. They tend to run their mouths a little bit much. They need to learn to listen to the other side instead of telling the other side what they have to do to them to convince you. Because,
Well, you just touched on the fourth pillar
okay,
too, and that was letting go of feelings of
yeah,
guilt because most parents, the majority that I've seen, will blame themselves in one way or another and say, I could have done this, I should
yeah,
have done that, or I should have seen the
hmm,
signs, it's my fault. I even went through a little bit of that because I had a premonition the day Brandon died, and I didn't want him to go because of that
right.
premonition. But, you know, I almost thought of ways to keep him from going, but it would have been too manipulative. And so it was his time.
Well, and then he would
But
have, and maybe some people would prefer it, but your son could have died in front of you, which would have absolutely scarred you and left you feeling even more helpless because you were there and couldn't do anything. So I believe we have to have faith in the other side that they're making it happen in our best interest, and especially when it's not a preventable death.
yeah. Now, going along with those feelings of
Right.
guilt is about the same thing. And this is still part of my fourth pillar, and that is harboring anger towards another
Hmm.
person and not forgiving that you hold responsible for that passing, whether it be an accident kind of
Hmm.
situation or a doctor or medical
Yes.
person that you're
Hmm.
blaming. If you hold on to that, you're only hurting
Right.
yourself. You have to at some point let go. I'm not saying it's
Right.
easy, but that's a critical thing. And then the fifth pillar is what we like to talk about the most, and that's the hope element, and that's openness to afterlife evidence and spiritual experiences that confirm that your loved one carries
Right.
on, in the next realm. And maybe for people to start out, maybe they just start with a book, like my book, Persistence of the Soul. Or I know a researcher in Scotland, Tricia Robertson, who wrote one called "Things You Can Do When You're
Oh,
Dead."
wow.
So
That
it's
sounds
really good. Yeah,
interesting.
and
I'll have to get that.
she's phenomenal. Yeah, and books about near-death experiences. Raymond Moody's first book in 1975, Life After
Hmm.
Life, or Dr. Eben Alexander's Proof of Heaven. There's tons of
Yes.
those. So read books to start with, and then maybe you decide what you want to do. Do you want to learn how to have a direct connection through a meditative process? Do you want to go to a medium for a reading?
Hmm.
And then make sure you get one that's vetted, like either through my list or through a trusted recommendation,
Right.
or someone like Allison.
Right.
Obviously, she's the best of the
Thank you.
best. So, so that fifth pillar, that's a big deal, and that's what differentiates our group from the others.
It's what makes you special and a standout for sure. I love that you have the Helping Fathers Heal. I'm going to start sending my clients your way because I read more women than men, but the husbands often come up in the reading when I'm bringing the child through, and they'll talk about dad having a heart attack. They often will highlight the heart because the dad is holding everything in and taking on the stress and blaming himself, and basically has figuratively a broken heart, but it can turn into a heart attack as it manifests physically in you when you hold all of that pain inside. So I'll talk to them about that, but I haven't had a support group to send dads to. So this is going to be invaluable. Thank you. And then you had talked about Brandon and some of the, signs and things that you've gotten from him, like the 3 white walls and the universe being the 4th. And I love that. And I love when I was talking to you last, and that we didn't record this, but I wanted to bring it up because I told Joe I thought it was just special. And I used an example, which happens to me often in readings. I'll use an example, which is the dead talking to me. And they're putting that example in my head for a reason, because it resonates with the person I'm talking to. And I believe it was surfing in Hawaii was brought up. And when we were done and we were off the air, you turned your laptop around so I could see where you were, because I didn't know where you were. I just assumed you were at home. And you were in Hawaii, and the ocean was right there. And it wasn't just any ocean. It was one where you had surfed with your son, Brandon, before. So, I mean, that's a sign too, a tip of the hat to him, from him to you, saying, see, Dad, like, I'm all around you. He works through all of us and through you. Sure. So I just thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah. And how synchronicities take place in life are really interesting too.
Yeah.
You just feel like things sometimes line up how they're supposed to be in unexpected ways. And that's happened to me so much. And just being open to that and recognizing those things,
Yes. Yes.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to go back to the signs. There's another way, and it was actually one that I did. It was like 1 or 2 days after Brandon's passing. This is the very first kind of thing I had happen before my uncle gave me a message. But I wanted a direct connection, so I went into a darkened room, which is actually a walk-in closet. I turned off the light, I sat down, and I tried to get into a meditative state.
That's helpful.
Sometimes it's hard for me to calm my mind, but I did. And within a short time, I saw in my mind's eye an image of Brandon, happy, smiling, and actually glowing with a glow around him, scrolling by. And then right after that, though, I saw a symbol, and it was a cross with an oval loop at the top. Now, I'd seen people wear those. I'd seen them around, but I didn't really know what they were. So me having that analytical side, I had to go Google it to find out what it was. And I discovered it was called an Ankh, which is the oldest cross of human history from the Egyptians 5,000 years ago. The lower portion representing physical life, and the oval loop representing eternal life. So I got a coded message from Brandon to tell me he was joyful, he was in the afterlife. Yes. And had I already known what that symbol meant, I could have said, well, my subconscious was just trying to make me feel good. So that was more meaningful to me, having to research what that meant.
And so people that are listening can understand the mentality of what we're talking about, what state of mind you need to be in. You were open to it. You were in the dark. Your eyes were closed. Your heart was open. You were open to get a message, no matter what the message is. A lot of people try and control what the message should be in their mind, and that'll mess you up every time. It's not going to work if you try and run an agenda on what they have to do to, like, either convince you or for you to find it acceptable. People have to be open.
Even like you as a medium, you're the vessel. Right. Like you said, you're the secretary, right? You're not always in control of everything. I mean, you set up the process as best you can to receive, but you're going to get what you get.
Exactly.
Right?
And they tap into our energy and use our words or pictures out of our life to communicate things to us. I had a reading I did, and I was shown my great-grandmother's couch. Well, my great-grandmother called it a Davenport. And I was like, it's a Davenport. And she said, that's where she's from. the person I was bringing through. So they were communicating Davenport in a way that I would understand it and say it. Not that they were intending to talk about a couch. It was just to get me to say the name of the town or the city that they were from. So they communicate
Davenport,
in different ways.
Iowa.
Yeah. Okay. So people have to be open going into the process. But what you did sitting in the dark, I always tell people, I'm like, you have to have quiet. You have to have quiet around you or you're not going to hear them if you're distracted by the world. And I do find it can be helpful if you're not an actual full-fledged medium that just does it all the time. Closing your eyes can help and it can help you to focus. And I always suggest they have a pad of paper and a pencil and they sit there and talk to the person that they want to communicate with. And just let your hands start writing down words that pop into your head or images that pop into your head. It's a good way to start the communication process. And when I finish each reading, mediumship reading, I say, before you go to bed tonight, I want you to put up a picture of them at the age they say they are, because they always give the age they reverted to, which was their heaven on earth. So they have that image of them instead of how they looked when they died. Then you say, you start thinking of all the happy memories. You can't think about the death or anything connected to the death. It has to be everything connected to their life. Then you say, I'm ready for a visit with a smile on your face and go to sleep. You've raised your frequency or your vibration and it's more aligned with theirs. They're able to communicate with you more easily. And when you're asleep, we get out of our way. It's easier for them to get through to us when our brain shuts down somewhat. So what you do and suggest for them to do, the people in your organization that are grieving, is spot on, exactly right in making a connection at bedtime, because it's just more likely to happen than when you're awake.
When I think about my dad growing up and how he lived in rural Ohio as a little kid, no radio, no TV, no phone. He was just in nature. So, I mean, I think part of, I think genetically had that ability, but, it was easier for him to develop because he didn't have all these distractions. Today, people with the smartphones and music and TV and multimedia stuff, they don't pay attention to the subtle as much. And I can give you an example if there's time of something I had happen. So I'm not a full-fledged medium or whatever, and I haven't
Your
really
dad
tried
was,
to be that.
so I mean, genetically it's there in you. So please speak.
It's there, but it's popped through sporadically with me, and maybe that's because I haven't dedicated myself to it. But a few years ago, for a 3-year stint, I was invited to speak at this Golden Gate Spiritualist Church in San Francisco. And I have another medium friend, Tina Powers, out of Tucson. She's an ex-news anchor. She's really a sweet person, a very good medium. And she would accompany me. So I would do a talk, and then she would give messages to the congregation. So before we went this one time, she's like, hey, Mark, I think you're going to get a message to share with the people there at the church. Will you do it? And I said, well, sure. If I get something, I'll share it. But she kept hounding me about this over and over. I'm like, why are you hounding me? I promised I'd do it.
Lay off, Tina.
Even walking into church. Even walking into church that day, she's like, now, Mark, if you get a message, will you share it? I'm like, yes. So this church was founded by a woman named Florence Becker in 1924. She passed in 1970. And by all accounts, she was a lot like my dad with her abilities. So I go into the church. I go into their healing room. It's about 30 minutes before I have to talk. And I'm trying to quiet my mind. So I shut my eyes like I described earlier and kind of got into a meditative state. While sitting there, the name popped into my mind, Max. I thought, Max? And then immediately, Maxine. I thought, oh, maybe it's Maxine and not Max. Now, I don't know how you get names, but I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. It just popped in like an idea or a thought. So I went and gave my talk. And at the end, I'm like, Tina made me promise that anything I might get, I'd share with the congregation. And do the names Max or Maxine mean anything to anyone here? And the pastor of the church's jaw drops, and he's like, Max and Maxine were twins born to the church founder, Florence Becker, and they were delivered stillborn, grew up in spirit. He says, I think we know who is here right now. Then afterward, he took me upstairs and showed me a painting that I think she did, and it was a landscape, and it had a long winding road. At the end were these two little figures. He goes, that's Max and Maxine. So I could then tell why Tina pushed me, because it was so subtle. I could have just said, that's my
Right.
imagination, that's nothing, and just not said it. But yet it was highly significant to those people. He said only like two old, longtime church members knew that story. And those weren't common names.
No.
And to get both of them is pretty crazy, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that is. I love that. That's very cool. And you trusted the process and it meant something. That's interesting. So you help resuscitate parents back to the land of the living. I'm sure Brandon's very proud of you. I just felt like I needed to tell you that he's very proud of you for building this organization that helps other parents. It's part of why his passing happened. And so I just wanted to pass that on to you. Is your goal to keep growing and becoming maybe more mainstream? And do hospitals give your information to grieving parents?
Well, we are growing rapidly, and we can plan to continue to do so. I have to give credit to Elizabeth Boyson, because she's the other co-founder. She's the president and works her tail off every
Sure.
day, hands-on. So she's on the operational side. I'm the chairman of the board, so I'm more oversight and direction. I still work full time and all
Mm-hmm.
that, but and then Irene Vuvalidis is the VP. Those two do all the work, and we were just on the phone earlier today. We're trying to set up the organization to accommodate additional growth. We've been completely all volunteer, no payroll for anybody or anything since our inception, which goes back to the origin was 2009 or 10, and then we really became Helping Parents Heal in early 2012. But we're getting to the point where now we've got to do
Yes.
fundraising, and we need to pay some people, because these people they're working 80 to 100 hours a week,
Yeah.
and it's just not
No, you need an
sustainable.
exchange of energy.
So
It's important. I was going to say, if you ever need a set of signed books or anything like that for auctions, for charity events, please let me know. I have sat
thank you.
on,
That would be awesome.
yeah, I've sat on charity boards and had to be the person that reaches out to all the friends and got them to, let us auction off a cabin up north, for a weekend getaway for somebody, things like that. It's not as hard to get as people think, especially when you're connected, which apparently I know a lot of people, but so do you. And I'm happy to
Yeah.
help you if you ever need any advice or any of that. If I can help, I'd be happy to. But you're right, you need to start generating income somehow in order to keep growing the services and having more people to be able to be available to help, at any time. So I understand the importance of it, and I know my listeners do too, because people have, money makes the world go round, unfortunately, and that's just part of reality. So don't feel bad about that. And I always tell my student mediums, always have an exchange of energy for a reading. The less you value something, the less people will value it. And when you place more of a value on your service because you're the real deal, people feel more comfortable as though they're getting the real deal, so the exchange of energy becomes very important to your time and energy that you're expelling for other people. And I don't think even many of my listeners might understand the amount of energy it pulls from you to deal and help grieving people to move through their grief. It's because they're basically taking your energy to replace what they don't have inside, what they don't have to give anymore because their hearts are broken. So they absorb your energy like kind of energy vampires, and they don't mean to, and they leave you exhausted by the time you're done counseling them. And it's part of the process that I'm used to, but I just don't think the everyday man out there always understands that people who counsel those that are the most traumatized, we get depleted and we need a break. And so you need to be able to give some of
Yeah.
the people working there a break as well, because you can only do so much of that before you need to recharge your batteries.
Yep. Yep. I've found the same thing even with my books, because I've had friends say, hey, give me a signed copy of your book. And I would do that. And then I'd check back like 2 months later. Oh, sorry, I haven't had time to read it.
Oh,
But yet people who have bought the book are raving about
exactly.
it, and so there is truth to that.
It's just a fact. It's an exchange of energy. If you buy something, you're taking the energy you put into your work from your workplace that they paid you for, and you're taking some of that income that you worked hard for because you value that object that you need or you want, and you're giving it away. You're giving it to that person as an exchange. So you do value it more. If somebody hands you something for free, it's just take it or leave it. They're just not sure. Even if it was the first exchange of energy I had, and I'll share this with you, is one of the first readings I did. And I had joined a mediumship circle. I was in homicide at the time. I was just there because there was a missing child, and I wanted to see what the people at the circle got, if they got any information, which is ironic considering that's what I ended up doing. Anyways, I got quite a reputation in the 6 months I was there, and I advanced so quickly in being able to read people that they started wanting to book with me. I'm like, I'm going to be a lawyer. What do you mean you want to book with me? So this one woman was in a lot of pain. I agreed to read her. I went to her house, and she gave me a really big bag of beautiful, ripe oranges. And that was the exchange. That was my first reading. That's where it started. And then it, obviously escalates because you have less time to give away as you get into demand because you're really good at what you do. And so you get more expensive. But a bag of oranges, that was my first exchange of energy. So I very much believe in the exchange of energy as I pay people for their
Where
talents.
the orange is
Yes.
good.
You know what? I had 3 little girls at the time. They just had the orange smiles, like the wedges in their mouth, and would run around the house with them. So yeah, I got a lot of enjoyment out of them. Thank you. And you know what? I bet we didn't get sick 1 or 2 times because we were eating so many oranges. So it was probably a really great gift if you look at it that way, right?
Vitamin C.
Exactly. So where can people find your book and information on you?
My website is markirelandauthor.com. That's Mark with a K, Ireland like the country, author, markirelandauthor.com. And not only my books are there, other media clips and things that might interest folks, but also links to the other things we talked about, Helping Parents Heal. And on the Helping Parents Heal site, you'll find Helping Fathers Heal. You also have a link to videos of my dad back in the day if you want to see those. They're pretty impressive. Also a link to, I'd mentioned last time, I have a certified medium list. These are people that I've vetted, making them do 5 blinded readings each, and they have to do well enough statistically to pass. And this was, like I said before, how do people find a good medium? If, like, say, someone like you is, the wait list is very long or whatever, these are some other resources people can
I have a
look at. So
suggestion.
all of
I have a
that said,
suggestion for you on that. I'm sorry. It's just I'm that mind of trying to make things work for people. So with the mediums that you have, you put a lot of energy into putting them on the website and promoting them and having a link that they benefit from. Each of those mediums should donate a reading to be auctioned off, and the money goes to your organization. Because
that's a great idea. Some of them actually already do
great.
that, but I can ask that of the rest of them. I think that's a
It's very
request.
reasonable, and I'm sure they'll be happy to do it because anybody that's in the business for the right reasons, I can't even say how much of my time and I've given away over the years to help with charities. And you know what? We're happy to do it because that's why we're here. Within reason, obviously we have to put a limitation to it because we'd be reading people constantly. But yes, that popped in my head. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. They should donate. There you go. That's like a large platform of very valuable readings already to auction off. And then you just add books. Experiences I found were big auction items, lunch or dinner with me. Dinner went for 10 grand. for one charity
Wow.
that they auctioned off with me. So you can do experience items. You could have people donate. You could give a surf lesson. They could donate jumping out of an airplane, where they take you up. Things on people's bucket list. You can make it fun. Buy this for somebody that has it on their bucket list that you love. That's a great auction item. And figuring all of what serves them, figuring that out. But also, I would say, do you have like a secretary or somebody that checks the emails most of the time? Because I would say to my listeners, if any of you want to help the grieving parents that are part of helping parents heal, and you want to donate an auction item because you have a cabin that you can auction off for the weekend, or, maybe there's something, maybe you own a salon and you have services that you would be willing to donate. Check out Helping Parents Heal and shoot them an email and let them know that you want to help those parents. And that would be very helpful. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
yeah,
for
you're
that.
very welcome.
Really
I mean,
appreciate
I'll help you with this. I've done this before for other charities, and it's worthwhile.
I'll be back to you afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Mark, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and share your story. I'm going to have you back. So thank you for sharing your story with my listeners. And thank you to my listeners. Tune in next Tuesday for a fresh episode of The Dead Life. I'm Allison Dubois. This is The Dead Life. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.